And welcome to Watches Tonight. I am your host, Tim Mosso. We have an exciting slate this evening. I've just returned from Watches and Wonders, and we're talking about it. And at your request, I'm discussing the Rolex, Omega, and Breitling watches that I would buy to populate my own collection with my own money. We're going to talk who impressed and what impressed at Watches and Wonders, add some details, and finally discuss the scourge of advertorial in watch journalism. How to classify it, how to spot it, and how you can combat it. Friends from around the world, welcome in. I've got a bit of a slow connection on this net connection, so let me know you're at least seeing this. Let's jump straight in. I want to emphasize that the guys who pay for these pixels, thewatchbox.com, represent the best place to buy, trade, and sell luxury watches. Whether you're buying, trading, or selling, especially if you're selling, we pay cash, we pay fast, we make it a no-brainer, and of course we are global and 24 hours a day. Thewatchbox.com, I'm going to give you a watch straight off the page. We have a new raffle watch for the month of February. It is a vintage Omega Speedmaster Professional Moon Watch, the 145022. Link in the description. You've got to be in it to win it, guys. I want one of my YouTubers to take it because, frankly, you guys deserve it and you've put in the hours. So win that vintage moon watch, tritium dial and all. Help me, shameless self-promotion, to hit 50K in 2K19 on my Instagram. Help me fill the gap at Tim_Mosso. I'm adding about 150 followers a day, and I give you guys full credit for that. You are my disciples spreading the words. Okay, Gregory V asks a question that is way mainstream. First, Tim, if you had to buy one current Omega, one Breitling, and one Rolex, what would be in that three-watch collection? Okay, let's start with the brand with which I got my start as a collector. That is Omega. My grandpa's Omega, his own graduation watch, in a sense, his retirement watch, was my first luxury timepiece, and then I had my own Seamaster for graduation and college. So let's start with the one I would pick. Of everything in the current collection and everything ever made, the Omega DeVille Hour Vision Annual Calendar. This thing is so hot. 41 millimeters, stainless steel, swimmable with 100-meter water resistance. It's got an annual calendar, which is the everyday friendly complication. It's got a long power reserve, 60 hours. It's a chronometer. It's got the exotic coaxial escapement. And launched in 2009, this model with the 8601 movement was the first Omega 8500 series caliber to get the SI14 silicone hairspring. Wait, it gets better. It features everything that I loved about the original DeVille Hour Vision back in 2007 during my first job, when I would slink home from the financial district from the Rector Street station to Penn, and while I was waiting for my train back to Long Island, I would go up to the little mini Tourneau at the top of the station just next to Madison Square Garden, and I would glance longingly at the original Hour Vision. This watch has it all. The shape, the sapphire viewports in the case, the extraordinary Art Deco-inspired Gadron dial with the applique faceted and polished hour indices. It is so hot. All of that, and frankly, again, I don't even have to tell you what vintage Omega I would pick in lieu of this one, because past and present is just one watch in my mind. That is a strong candidate for my next timepiece when my collector pause finally ends sometime this summer. I would say probably my birthday would be a good time to get back in the game, and that is my play. All right, jumping into Breitling. I'm going to split some hairs. Friends, let's see who's in the chat box. I'm actually getting a worse signal than you are, so you probably have a quicker net connection than me, and I work on the internet. Can we see some names? Can we see some friends? All right. Blue Shirt Buddha first in the box. Russell Washington, hello. David B. Joining the stream, Tom P., Marco Edward Ledden from Sweden, Naresh Pape from Canada. I can see Helmuth S. joining in, Jonathan Goldstein from Manhattan, Dustin Van Patten. I can see Patrick C., Clover 68, Z., Bakar 421, Horology Homies, Avid Day, Andre Gutierrez, Mr. Mutton Hollow, Thomas Burnett, 150 grand, and our most recent arrival, looks like Russell 996. Okay, jumping back in. The Breitling that I would buy myself from the current collection. It would be one or two, and they have nothing in common. I'm partial to the aerospace. You guys know, whenever anyone asks me what's a great $1,500 used luxury watch I can buy, I say an aerospace. Since I'm buying from the current collection, it's going to be the 43mm Aerospace Evo that's been with us since 2013. Titanium, full bracelet, and blue dial is how I'd take mine. This is a watch that retails for $4,375, and it gives you the works. Unidirectional dive style bezel? Check. 100-meter water resistance? Check. Backlight, minute repeater, dual time, GMT, chronograph with split seconds, perpetual calendar. all of the above. And I have to say, well, I'm not really a fan of Pilot's watches because of the water resistance and bezel style here. Plus, it has both backlight and luminova. This is one that's equally as welcome 100 meters below the waves as it is at FL50 above the clouds. Now, in lieu, the Premier. The Breitling Premier Bentley. This is a new one. In the last year, I haven't gotten my hands on it yet, but how can you say no to that sunburst green dial with tone-on-tone black registers? Okay, I'm not really an aviator. Give me some wheels if I can't have wings, and this one delivers. Technically, this is the Premier B01 Chronograph 42 Bentley. The Breitling for Bentley collection is gone. Now you're going to have a Bentley watch within each collection as part of a collection like Navitimer, Super Ocean, Premier. It's not going to be a standalone anymore. At 42 millimeters in steel, 100 meters water-resistant display case back with slick details like a identity plate on the side, this is a really cool watch. And while I don't dig every style of Bentley or the bling aspect of the brand, I appreciate the heritage as well as the integrity of the products, so I do like the Bentley brand, and I love this particular tribute to the Bentley brand. 3-day power reserve, stop seconds, quick set date. Well, actually, this one has a vertical clutch and a column wheel setup, so it's the works. I love this watch. For $8,500, it's probably the most interesting watch in the Breitling collection right now. I've advised others to buy Navitimers, however, if they were to purchase just one Breitling, so what gives? Well, here's what gives. For most folks, you're going to want the iconic Breitling. Me, in particular, I don't love flying. I've soloed aircraft, I got my fill. I've been there, done that, and I didn't fall in love with it. So I don't dream of flying or watches that are aviation themed. So, like I said, give me wheels, not wings, and I will fly at sea level. Friends, if not that, if I could purchase a used Breitling for my collection, this is what I would do. Turn back the clock not far, only 2 or 3 years, to the Transocean 1461. This is a rare watch, and you get a lot. Semi-perpetual calendar. It is a Cantillon bisextile calendar. You correct it once during the Olympic year, the leap year with the extra day. It can handle irregular length months. It can handle the jump from February to March. It's a chronograph. It's a moon phase. It's automatic. It's 100 meters. It's a mesh bracelet. It's a black dial. It's all of the above and a chronometer. I'm in love. And at 43 millimeters, this is big, but I can pull it off. That's what I would pick if we include past collection. Rolex. Milgauss Z-Blue. I've been adamant about this and consistent. The first Rolex I buy will be this guy right here. A timepiece with a retina-searing sunburst and signal orange and green accents to make it pop in a way that no Rolex does and leave your cones begging for mercy. With a 5-year warranty, almost no loss of value, and the intangible of being the first. This is a watch I would actually purchase new. Maybe I'd lose $500 on value, but I'm not buying it to sell it, I'm buying it to own. And with an attestation of plus or minus 2 seconds a day, it would be a privilege to wear such an accurate timepiece. I've owned one watch in my entire life that could keep that kind of time, and that was my late great JLC Duomet. This would be the only Rolex I would buy new. But if I couldn't have that one from the current collection, I would buy a used model still in production, and that would be the Yacht Master Albino, the 116689 post-2017 dial variant to get the rarest of the rare. Because let's face it, since 2013, if you're going to buy a white gold Yacht Master II, or I should say a white metal Yacht Master II, you're buying the steel one, not the gold watch at over $48,000. And that price, as well as the fact that this one sheds value like my old Labrador shed hair. Not quite the same tumbleweed scenario indoors, but this one does it to your bank account. You can pick these up for $30,000, 12 to 18 months old, and that's probably how I would buy mine. Now, if we're looking back, I would pick up a vintage or borderline vintage Rolex 19019, the oyster quartz date in white gold. I would want a dark dial. If I'm getting greedy here, unpolished with lapis lazuli dial, but I'd be satisfied unpolished, good condition, oyster quartz date with a dark dial, black or blue. You can't really be a chooser when you're dealing with vintage watches. The rule is buy the best one available. Finally, guys, you let me know which Omega, Breitling, and Rolex from the current catalog you would buy for yourself. I can see Jumbo Jet Pilot saying, I bought my buddy a Z-Blue. You are a good man and an aviator. You fell in love with it. I tasted, but I never got the taste or the palate for it. And I can see Cull Obsidian saying, I have a Z-Blue and adore it, and the Polar Explorer 2. That's another one I like. If we were to extend this list to like 3 or 4 watches, that would be on mine. And I can see BKAR 421 saying, I feel like I need to see this one in person to truly assess how it looks. Thomas Burnett is just a fan. The Z-Blue looks amazing. Jumping straight in, I can see you guys have been talking about watches and wonders, and that's our second topic of the night. I'm going to tell you what impressed me the most. Person, place, and thing. Let's start with a thing. The Design District for the second year played host to Watches and Wonders, an event previously held in the watch mecca of Hong Kong. But Hong Kong is a distribution point. It's not necessarily where the world goes to buy, whereas Miami is a market for buyers. So it made sense. What was hot in the Design District this year? Let's start with Gerald Genta, or perhaps I should say Bulgari and Gerald Genta. This was the Gerald Genta by Bulgari 50th Anniversary Arena by Retro, and it's a watch that stole my heart when I saw the first press photos. And the hand on the wrist, it impressed even more. It intrigues on multiple levels. Let's start with the most basic. I'm impressed and gratified that Bulgari acknowledged its history. Gerald Genta, as a brand founded in 1969 by the eponymous designer, was bought by Bulgari in 2000 and phased out as a name starting in 2010. It gradually disappeared over the course of 2 model years. Now, in 2016, Bulgari, on behalf of our Govberg authorized dealer side of the company, actually sponsored a series of videos that I shot featuring their latest models. And anytime I tried to draw a line from something like the Octo to its history with the Gerald Genta brand, Bulgari vetoed the video and had me redo because they didn't want to muddy the waters. They didn't want to embrace that part of their past. This watch proves that they've changed their mind. I'm happy to see the change of heart, the embrace of the Genta history, and it's important to own your history if you want to be a true luxury manufacturer. Bulgari, welcome to the club. Second, on a product basis, the watch is sensational and just tons of fun. It makes me smile. Wearable at 41 millimeters with retrograde minutes, retrograde date, a jump hour, 100-meter water resistance, and massive in platinum without being large. It was such a treat. Original double G logo on the dial, on the clasp, and on the caseback. They're embracing not just the Genta brand, but also the iconography and the history. The logo from 1969 is the one you see on this one. The blue sunburst dial pops, and the applied Arabic numerals as well as indices of the minute track give the watch a 3-dimensional look and richness on top of the sunburst. This is just a really cool all-arounder that could easily be your only watch. And unlike the old Gentas, this one features a Bulgari BVL 191 base caliber rather than an ETA 2892 or Girard Perregaux. 50 pieces and $59,000. This thing is going to be scarce, but I think a version of this watch in carbon, titanium, or steel, Bulgari likes all three, should be a permanent part of the collection in homage to its history. Call it Bulgari's version of the AP15202 or the 5711 Nautilus. Now, jumping in, Audemars Piguet, you guys had one hell of a rally at Watches and Wonders after SIHH. The watch that impressed me, the Audemars Piguet Code 1159 Perpetual Calendar. I didn't see it at SIHH, where the focus was entirely on the basic automatic and the chronographs that were going to be the volume models. We have a picture of the automatic and the chronograph, and you can see the problems with those two. The automatic has a relatively anodyne date, whereas the chronograph, especially in person, is almost unreadable. You can't discern the features on the dial base. Gloss polished metal on a gloss lacquer. It's just too much. Here's what goes right with the Perpetual. Everything I didn't like about the previous watch is corrected. It fills the gaping hole in the bezel that so many of us critiqued on the originals. The Perpetual Calendar has an explosive aventurine dial center that gives depth and luster and texture and contrast. All of a sudden, you have a dial with sufficient strength and presence to hold its own against the overpowering bezel, case, and lugs, which are beautifully executed but asymmetrically styled. They're just too much for the basic watch. Here, they scintillate. AP was clear about its plans to keep the 1159 collection scarce. I was happy to hear that and not force inventory on dealers or their own boutiques. They were also doubly certain about keeping complications scarce, so this will remain a watch undersupplied. Their goal is a wait list. I think they're going to achieve that. AP was also clear about the nuance and self-awareness that maybe we didn't pick up during the all-singing, all-dancing rollout of this model line. They are not going to push these past the point of demand. It's not going to be like the Royal Oak. It's never going to be mainstream. And they particularly are not going to recreate the scenario of the once red-hot but ultimately oversold Millenary 4101 that bowed in 2011, rocked it for about 2 years, but then overpopulated the market. Furthermore, AP is also listening and carefully to customer feedback regarding the entire Code 1159 line, and that's all a collector can really ask. I expect this line to become the definition of interactive watchmaking down the line. AP doing wonderful things with this line. Still not a great show on the automatic or chronograph front. The watches need improvement, but the fact that the brand is open to everything and collectors means that they are not bullheaded or headstrong about the direction. Correcting mid-course sometimes is a sign of strength. Vacheron Constantin, the current Big Three incumbent with the most potential to strengthen, might be the one with the brightest future. Consider the confidence and the warmth that I encountered when I met with Vacheron at the show. Philadelphia's finest, outside, keeping us safe. It's part of being in the city. Vacheron let me, an internet personality who works for a pre-owned dealer, handle and film everything from the first functional prototype of the new Twin Beat to all 4 generations of Vacheron Constantin sports watch, including the company's own museum piece, mint condition 1977 Model 222, the original Jörg Heisig piece that did battle with the Royal Oak and the Laureato and the Nautilus back in the day, and the Jumbo Ingenieur. Vacheron is proud of and in touch with its history, as evidenced not just by the presence of that 222, but also all 3 generations of the Overseas, the Generation 1 Overseas with its almost quaint proportions and bracelet, the oversized and bold Overseas Generation 2 that really made this a talking point among luxury sports watch collectors, and active expansion of the now hot and in-demand Generation 3 Overseas Tourbillon. That watch was on hand, functional, and on my wrist during the show. So they're open, they're evolving, and they're proud of their history. A common thread among successful brands. Consider the sheer range, too, and capability of Vacheron. Starting with the historique 1955 extra-thin Vacheron Constantin. Solid gold movement, uber thin, just under 5 millimeters, a movement dating back to 1955 and the 200th anniversary of the brand, Geneva hallmark, exquisitely sized and traditionally proportioned. They have that, and it exists alongside the overpowering, custom-built piece unique Cabinotier Armillary Tourbillon Retrograde Snake, freehand engraved 46mm case, biaxial tourbillon, retrograde hours, retrograde minutes, all of this created to show what you can have custom made for you at Vacheron. The idea is that with Cabinotier, you can have not just a variation on an existing watch, a green dial or a blue dial or a white gold watch instead of a rose gold, or engraving, or a case back with your initials. They will make you a minute repeater or a sonnery if none exists. How about a sonnery that chimes "Smoke on the Water" every quarter? They can do it in shared tribute to Geneva and Lake Geneva's horological and musical heritage. They can make that happen. Do you want a triaxial tourbillon instead of a biaxial tourbillon? They'll make it. A case that doesn't exist? Just write the check. Done and done. Now, ask Patek Philippe for a custom green dial on that 5711 for which you're expected to pay list and wait 2 years. Yeah, it's not going to happen. Vacheron doing everything right and remarkably approachable. Vacheron finally gets it and is going places. And if I ever find myself personally going places and I'm in a position, you already know what my Cabinotier order is going to look like. Guys, can we go full screen with that? It's going to be some combination of the above. Heaven help us. Truly pushing the limits of Vacheron's capability and good taste. As manic and mental as yours truly. Finally, I was deeply impressed by you, all of you who came up, introduced yourself. It was wonderful to attach names to some of the handles I've seen on the internet for years, some of the folks with which I've had correspondence. Oh, you're emailing me even now. Richard and Carrie, first and foremost, thanks for your kindness and encouragement of my YouTubing. Mutually, that was an honor from both of you guys. Wear 'em in great health. Kaz, thank you for taking the time to make introductions. It was an absolute pleasure to meet you and do a wrist check. Ezra, that Calatrava Pilot of yours is a killer, and my favorite and most subversive watch, the 5420 the 5524G of 2015. Tom joined me as one who appreciates fine autos and timepieces, hidden right in front of a Pagani, ducking out behind my left elbow. And I could see Tim and Tim finally met at the Independent Brand pop-up after months of correspondence. Tim Holohan, musician out of Key West, fun to finally meet you, and another proud owner of the Calatrava Pilot 5524G. Guys, send your wrist shots to mondaymailbag@thewatchbox.com to see your analog on my digital. Now, jumping right in, I could see we've got lots of friends in the chat box, and I could see Captain Zed saying he's into VC lately. I could see that JB Melbs is saying he's a big fan of the second and third generation overseas. They're both great values. Dustin Van Patten, if the boat is sinking, I'm risking it with Vacheron. They're knocking him out this year. Eastwood Tillman, everyone give Tim and crew a like, best, or a taped watch show currently out there. Yeah, like and comment if you're watching this recorded, please. Great point. Main feature tonight, and one that concerns all of us, both on the production and consumption side of the watch world, advertorial in watch journalism, also known as pay-to-play. As a lifelong writer and watch enthusiast, nothing boils my blood like advertorial, a phenomenon in which a journalist and journalism, product promotion, and brands blur into one without disclosure. And I know that I'm not alone, because many of you have contacted me about specific suspect articles. You've asked me whether I write advertorial and query me about whether I know anyone on the take. The discussion continues blazing on the forum scene, where suspicions run rampant about blogs, magazines, online journals, and social media personalities who might be engaged in some sort of undisclosed financial relationship with a dealer or brand. I'm going to help you define advertorial, classify it, spot it, and deal with it. First, a little bit of disclosure. There are four fundamental parties at play here. You've got the media, the brands, the dealers, and watch enthusiasts, and I've actually got my finger in a couple of pots here. First, there's me. I represent the dealer. I'm trying to make you buy something, and I'll tell you so. Given my arsenal of mantra-like marketing machinations, I prefer to be represented by a more sympathetic face or avatar, such as this adorable pug puppy with its tongue sticking out. When you think of me and my dealer machinations, think of this. That'll diffuse the situation. Disclosure, I no longer write sponsored content. I never wrote advertorial. The difference between advertorial and sponsored content is the big mark at the top that says sponsored content or this is an advertisement. Back in the Watch You Want days, when we were trying to keep the lights on, we did a few sponsored posts on a blog to watch. They were always labeled as such. I also do sponsored videos for the brands. You'll know them because you see the brand logo at the beginning of the video. I say something weird and Stepford like, "Welcome to the world of Omega," and I'm wearing gloves. It's easy to tell. Full disclosure, I've done this. I've never written something, taken money, and pretended it was my own view. Okay. Dealers will push you toward a purchase, but they're also open, or they should be open, about this goal. The deception factor is low because as dealers, we have no secrets. Caveat emptor, this is the devil you know. Well, watch brands come next. They can be a little bit more subtle and a little bit more devious. As with dealers, brands should be straightforward sales engines. It's not always that simple, but for the most part, if you see something written on behalf of a brand or a junket or an event sponsored by a brand, you should definitely have your filter up. Set your shields. And finally, we have our watch enthusiasts. Well, this is our third party of the four. Watch enthusiasts can't rely on dealers or brands as sources of unbiased purchase advice, so they rely on each other, peer-to-peer, and they rely on the watch media. Now we're getting to the crux of this thing. Here's where advertorial comes in, and there are three kinds. First, and this is the most common type, somebody writing for an online journal or blog or even magazine pulls his punches or blunts his criticism because he fears reprisal from the brands that control access to product, events, and junkets. Call it the Finlandization of the watch journalism scene. That's the press room at Baselworld. If you've never seen it, that's what you're looking at there. And that Finlandization phrase is an old one from the Cold War, sometimes used in West Germany to describe concern that Soviet power might be overawing border nations. And that's kind of unfair because the Finns had a lot of fight. And if you look at the earliest battles of World War II, it was actually the Finns beating the Russians. But still, the term Finlandization refers to a smaller force or entity being overawed and influenced or cowed by a greater force. Now, The watch journal business is a precarious one for a lot of writers and journals and site owners. Many of these are trying to make it in their dream occupation, and it's a quasi-hobby level. They are absolutely dependent on brands for the access, which is the lifeblood of the pictures and articles and trips and coverage that they provide. Explicitly or implicitly, this fact colors the content of watch magazines and online journals who can't afford to run afoul of their benefactors. Read between the lines. The way you spot this is that you look for backhanded compliments. You look for a buried lead, a bunch of positives followed by some minor negatives stacked underneath effusive praise at the top. When you see faint criticism, a backhanded compliment, or you have to read between the lines to find any flaws in the product, you're generally looking at a writer who's afraid to shoot at Santa Claus. Okay, second, there's the prevalence of articles written from press releases. This is the second type of advertorial, and there is a press release page on TimeZone. This is what it looks like. All of this is time and date stamped, and it relates mostly to new model debuts. Compare it to same-day articles that are published on watch journals describing just released models, and cross-reference the stock photos, figures, and turns of phrase from these press releases, and you will find amazing symmetry. Not just the fact that all of the blogs and journals write the same stuff and use the same photos, but that everything is mostly conformed and extrapolated from the press release. I would also say that events, direct product access, and trade shows like SIHH and Basel are infrequent. So a great deal of watch journalism relies exclusively on repackaging and publishing press releases. For example, real-world example, I spoke to Hodinkee in 2014 before I joined Watch You Want. Watch You Want wanted to pay, Hodinkee didn't, but in the process of discussions, obviously I wound up with Watch You Want on that basis, Hodinkee mentioned that repackaging press releases as articles was basically a huge part of their turnover of content. And if Hodinkee needs this practice to keep the line moving, that means basically everyone else needs it too, because Hodinkee, as much as I rib them a little bit, is top of the heap in content and investment in writers, bureaus, events, travel. If they need to repackage press releases, everyone does. This is more lazy than sinister, but it's also necessary for journals and blogs with minimal access. Rarely, however, do you see anyone disclose that everything you've just read was provided by the manufacturer. How do you spot it? Well, you use signs. You cross-reference with the press release page that I just showed you. You check releases. You check the journal's words and pictures from article to article, site to site. And when you see press photos, you know for a fact you're looking at something that was written from a press release. Because if you're doing original reporting and taking your own photos, you're not going to be using press photos. So a repackaged release will always include stock photos. Joining in, I can see Dante Miami saying, "Hi Tim, though brief, it was good to meet you at the VC boutique." We've got friends and crew joining in, and I could see Brooke Lane saying that, "Thank God we're not watching Tim on Hodinkee right now." They do good work. I make fun of them. They do good work, but I couldn't wear those sweaters. I couldn't wear a beard. These glasses will never be heavy framed black and over my eyes. It doesn't work that way, guys. Finally, the puppet principle. This is advertorial as you imagine it, and this is the most insidious type of advertorial. This is the pure, undeclared, pay-to-play, puppet master type stuff. And yes, I threw up Fraggles to represent puppets. I was a child of the late 80s, early 90s. You can spot this when one journal veers toward a dramatically different and usually positive take on a product or strategy. Always read several articles about a product so you can spot the outlier. Math is your friend and instructive. FYI, never trust new watch dealers that claim to be journalists. You're one or the other, period. If you sell watches, especially if you're an authorized dealer, you cannot be objective. You might write, entertain, and take great photos, but this is not journalism. I would also say the inverse also applies. You might see effusive praise of something that others are perhaps praising faintly or even criticizing, but sometimes you will see a journal suddenly slam or throw down against a brand previously portrayed in a positive light on that platform, Hulk smash. And when Hulk smash without warning and without precedent, that usually means that it's your enigma-coded red flag that a journal's gravy train from the brand in question, the excommunicado, was suddenly cut off. Who can you trust? Here's some journals, online and offline, that I know will never do the third type of advertorial. They will never take pay to play. So almost everyone repackages press releases, and almost everyone of necessity can't say, this is a horrible watch, I hate it. But a blog to watch is solid. They will never take money. I know. Back in the Watch You Want days, we used to ask, can we buy an article that's not labeled advertorial? The answer would be no. You're going to have sponsored content, and it's going to say so. They never took money to disguise the intent of an article, and they never would. Quill and Pad is another one that I think is probably immune to everything but repackaging press releases. They do great work. They can be biting in their criticism, so they're not necessarily afraid of running afoul of brands, and they would never take money to express an opinion or change an opinion. And I would say that articles on Watch Pro site and its companion Watch Pro Zine tend to be pretty straightforward because the collectors on that site are high end. They got the money to buy anything they want. They don't have to take anything from the brands wine and dine them. And the reputation between each other, between collectors who know each other on that site, generally means that one wouldn't sell out his integrity and risk embarrassment in front of the others. So it's sort of a self-policing system on Watch Pro site. Finally, offline, I consider Watch Time to be top of the line in terms of objectivity. Roger Ruger and his friends would never, ever be paid to take an opinion offline or put an opinion online. And FYI, Roger's going to be on the channel this Thursday to film a special, a collector conversation and a talk about watches and wonders and Basel predictions. So guys, you let me know, have you ever spotted advertorial? Tell me in the comments below. Also, let me know, what questions do you have about advertorial? I've written sponsored content. I've written straight journalism. I've written before I worked for a vendor, and I've written after. I've been on both sides of the house. Thanks so much, guys. Viewer wrist shots, the old-fashioned kind. Leading off with Abdul L, who shares his Tudor Heritage Black Bay Red from his balcony in Cairo. Mark S drives his Infinity with the latest Omega Seamaster Professional Diver 300 meter on a slick NATO, nicely coordinated. Wong Sarunsi and his Nomos Tangent Sport ride in style in a Porsche Cayenne Hybrid E, or E-Hybrid I should say. Richard of New Jersey takes us home with his Jaguar F-Type Cabrio and his Hamilton Intramatic Chrono. Guys, send your wrist shots to mondaymailbag@thewatchbox.com to see your pieces on these pixels. Thanks all. Link in the description. Win that Omega. Comment below if you're watching this recorded. Please like. And join me offline on Instagram at Tim_Mosso. Thanks all. Thanks to you. Thanks to my crew. Time out, Tim out. And thank you for logging on.